Have you ever noticed that the more you try to please everyone else, the more invisible you become? You give and give, yet at the end of the day you're exhausted, drained and wondering, when is it my turn? The truth is, if you don't put yourself first, the world will keep putting you last. I remember a time when I thought being selfless was the highest form of love. I said yes to everything, helping friends, taking on extra work, sacrificing my own needs, because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. But slowly I started losing myself. I stopped doing the things I loved. I was constantly tired, resentful, and quietly frustrated. One day I realized I had become a supporting character in my own life story. That's when it hit me. Putting yourself first is not selfish, it's survival, it's self-respect, it's the foundation of everything else you can give. And from that moment, everything began to change. Number 1. Self-care is not selfish. We live in a world that constantly tells us that sacrifice equals love, that the more you give of yourself, the more noble you are, and that putting your own needs on hold is a badge of honor. But this mindset is one of the greatest lies we've been conditioned to believe. Because the truth is, you cannot give what you do not have. Imagine running on an empty tank of gas. Your car might move for a few more meters, but eventually it will stop, and no matter how much you push, no matter how much you want it to keep going, it won't go anywhere until it is refueled. And this is exactly what happens to us when we neglect ourselves for too long. I learned this lesson the hard way when I met a woman named Sarah during a seminar I once attended. She was a single mother of 3, working 2 jobs, volunteering at her church, and still making time to help her friends whenever they called. On the surface she seemed like a pillar of strength. Everyone admired her, everyone leaned on her, but behind the scenes, she was collapsing. She hadn't had a full night's sleep in years. Her health was deteriorating, and she told me that sometimes she would sit in her car and cry for 20 minutes before going into work, because she felt so empty inside. Yet she kept pushing, because she thought that was what love meant, giving everything away until there was nothing left. One day her body forced her to stop. She collapsed in the middle of her shift at work and was rushed to the hospital with exhaustion, dehydration and stress-induced complications. That breakdown became her breakthrough, because for the first time she was forced to see that self-care was not selfish. It was necessary for survival, necessary for her children, necessary for her future. She began making small changes, setting aside 1 hour a day just for herself, saying no to extra shifts she couldn't handle, scheduling medical checkups, and most importantly giving herself permission to rest without guilt. Slowly her energy returned, her health improved, and she became more present with her children than she had been in years. And here's the paradox. When she started putting herself first, she actually gave more to the people around her, but this time from a place of fullness, not depletion. This is the principle we often ignore. Self-care is the foundation of service. When you neglect yourself, you are teaching the world that your needs don't matter, and sooner or later you will collapse under the weight of everyone else's expectation. But when you respect yourself enough to rest, to nourish your body, to nurture your mind and to protect your peace, you create a reservoir of energy that overflows into every area of your life. Think about it. When you are well rested, your conversations are kind. When you are healthy, your presence is stronger. When you are emotionally balanced, your relationships thrive. Putting yourself first does not take away from others, it multiplies what you can give. Yet guilt is the shadow that creeps in the moment you choose yourself, and it whispers, you're being selfish. But here is the truth that Sarah learned and that I want you to embrace. Selfishness is taking from others to serve only yourself, while self-care is serving yourself so you can better serve others. There is a world of difference between the two. The airlines remind us every time we fly, put on your own oxygen mask first, before helping others, because if you pass out, you cannot save the person next to you. Life works the same way. If you do not breathe for yourself, you cannot breathe life into others. Self-care is not indulgence, it is not luxury, it is not weakness, it is discipline, it is wisdom, and it is strength. And the most powerful act of love you can ever give to the world is to first love yourself enough to protect your energy, your body and your spirit. Because when you are full, whole and alive, you don't just survive, you inspire. Number 2. Boundaries are bridges, not walls. One of the most misunderstood concepts in life is the idea of boundaries, because so many people hear the word boundary and immediately think of walls, of barriers, of shutting people out. But the truth is that boundaries are not walls. They are bridges. They are pathways that allow healthy connection, respect and love to flow without resentment, exploitation or exhaustion. When you fail to set boundaries, you open the door to being drained, taken for granted and even disrespected, because people will treat you according to the standards you set, I remember meeting a man named David who used to be everyone's yes man. At work, he was the one who always picked up extra projects because he didn't want to disappoint his boss. At home, he was the one his family called at all hours of the night for money, favors, or emotional rescue. To his friends, he was the one who always showed up no matter how tired or broken he felt. From the outside, he looked dependable, loyal and generous, but inside he was suffocating. He told me that he often lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking himself, when is it my turn? When will someone show up for me the way I show up for them? But the harsh reality was this. People couldn't see his exhaustion because he never showed them where his line was. He had taught them that his time, his energy and his heart were endlessly available. Things came to a breaking point when David's health collapsed. He had a stress-related heart scare at just 39 years old. Lying in the hospital bed, he realized that if he didn't change, he would not be around long enough to see his kids grow up. That was his wake-up call. He decided to set boundaries, not out of anger or revenge, but out of love, for himself and for the people who depended on him. He sat down with his boss and said, I can give my best work during these hours, but I can't take on extra beyond my capacity. He told his family, I love you, but I cannot keep rescuing you at the cost of my own well-being. I will help where I can, but I will not sacrifice my health anymore. At first, people resisted. Some were angry, some accused him of changing, some tried to guilt him into going back to the old patterns, but he stood firm because he knew that his life depended on it. And here's what happened. Over time, the relationships that were real and rooted in respect adjusted and grew stronger, while the relationships that were built only on what they could take from him naturally faded away. He realized that boundaries were not walls keeping people out. They were bridges that allowed the right people to cross with respect, while preventing the wrong people from trampling over his soul. And here lies the lesson. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about showing people where the safe passage into your life exists. A healthy boundary says, this is where I end and where you begin. This is how we can meet each other in a way that is respectful, balanced, and loving. Without boundaries, relationships drown in unspoken resentment, silent bitterness, and hidden exhaustion. With boundaries, relationships thrive because there is clarity, honesty, and mutual respect. Think about it. When you say no to something that drains you, you are actually saying yes to the things that give you life, and that yes makes you more present, more joyful, more authentic when you do show up. Boundaries protect your energy so that when you give from abundance, not obligation. They teach people how to treat you, and they teach you how to value yourself. And here is the truth. The people who truly love you will not be offended by your boundaries. They will honor them, because they will understand that your no is not a rejection. It's an act of preservation. It's an act of self-respect. It's an act of love. So don't be afraid to draw the line. Don't be afraid to protect your time, your peace, and your energy, because the world doesn't benefit from a burned-out version of you. It benefits from the real, whole, alive version of you, who knows exactly where the bridge ends and begins. Number 3. Your energy is currency. If there is one truth most people overlook, it is this. Your energy is your greatest currency. More valuable than money, more valuable than status, because money can be regained, opportunities can return, but once your energy is spent, you cannot buy back the hours of your life that were wasted on things and people that drained you. Energy is the invisible wealth that determines the quality of your relationships, the depth of your work, and the level of your joy. I once met a woman named Linda, a brilliant young professional, who was passionate about her career but found herself constantly exhausted, not because of her work itself, but because of the people she allowed into her space. She had friends who only called her when they needed advice or help, but never showed up for her in return, co-workers who dumped their responsibilities on her because they knew she would never say no, and even family members who criticized her every choice while still depending on her financially and emotionally. She told me one day, I feel like I'm going broke, but not financially, emotionally, spiritually. I'm bankrupt inside. And that was the turning point where she realized that her energy was like a bank account, and every interaction was either a deposit or a withdrawal. For years she had allowed people to withdraw from her account without ever checking the balance, and now she was overdrawn, living in emotional debt, tired and resentful. But then she began to She started treating her energy like money, budgeting it wisely, investing it carefully, and protecting it from unnecessary losses. She made a list of what truly energized her: exercise, creative writing, quiet mornings, supportive friendships, and she began to prioritize those things. At the same time, she began saying no to things that were nothing but withdrawals. Conversations that drained her, obligations that weren't hers to carry, and relationships that only took without giving back. At first it was hard, she felt guilty, she felt selfish, but then she noticed something powerful. As her energy returned, her confidence rose, her creativity flowed, her relationships deepened, and her work performance soared. She was no longer surviving, she was thriving, because she had learned to protect her currency. And here is the lesson. Every time you give your energy to something, you are making an investment, and you must ask yourself, what return will this bring to my life? If you are constantly giving energy to people who never replenish you, you are living in emotional poverty. If you are pouring your energy into distractions, drama, or negativity, you are throwing away your wealth. But if you choose to invest your energy into growth, into people who uplift you, into dreams that excite you, then your life multiplies in value. Energy is the fuel that determines your destiny, and just like money, it requires discipline to manage it well. Think of how carefully you check your bank account. You notice when a charge is missing, when a bill is due, when something is not balanced. Do you check your energy the same way? Do you notice who drains you, who uplifts you, where your time goes, and whether your investments are returning joy or just stress? Because the truth is, if you don't guard your energy, the world will spend it for you, and you'll wake up one day, realizing you've given your wealth to everyone but yourself. Linda's story is not unique. It is the story of so many people who burn out, not because they lack strength, but because they fail to realize that energy is finite and must be valued. And when you finally understand this, you become intentional. You stop leaking energy into meaningless things, and you begin to channel it into what matters most. Protect your energy like you protect your money, because unlike money, once your energy is gone, you can never earn that moment of your life back. Guard it, invest it, and watch how your life begins to compound in joy, peace, and purpose. Number 4. Approval is an endless prison. One of the most dangerous prisons in the world is not built with walls, bars, or chains. It is built in the mind, constructed from the need for approval and guarded by the fear of rejection, and so many people spend their lives locked inside it, never realizing that the key to freedom has always been in their own hands. The hunger for approval is subtle but powerful. It starts in childhood when we crave validation from our parents, it continues in school when we seek acceptance from our peers, and it follows us into adulthood when we measure our worth by the opinions of colleagues, friends, partners, or strangers on social media. I once met a man named Robert who lived almost his entire life for the approval of others. He grew up in a strict household where nothing he did ever seemed good enough. So he carried that wound into adulthood, constantly trying to prove his value by overachieving. At work, he never said no, even when the workload was impossible, because he feared disappointing his boss. In relationships, he molded himself into whatever his partner wanted, silencing his own voice just to keep their love. Among friends, he laughed at jokes that hurt him, agreed with opinions he didn't believe in, and gave time he didn't have, all because he didn't want to be rejected. On the outside, people thought Robert had it all together. He was successful, well-liked, and always dependable. But on the inside, he was exhausted, bitter, and quietly resentful, because no matter how much he gave, no matter how much approval he collected, it was never enough to fill the emptiness inside him. The breakthrough came one night when Robert was scrolling through his phone, reading comments under one of his social media posts. Some people praised him, others criticized him, and he felt his emotions rise and fall with every word. Then it hit him. He was living like a puppet on strings, his happiness controlled by the hands of strangers who didn't even know his soul. In that moment, he asked himself, when will I finally be enough for me? That question became the spark of his transformation. Slowly, he began to release the prison of approval. He started saying no at work when the requests were unfair, and though it felt terrifying at first, he realized the world did not collapse. The respect of his colleagues actually grew. In his personal life, he started voicing his true thoughts, even if it meant disagreeing, and he found that authenticity drew closer the people who genuinely valued him, while pushing away those who only wanted him for what he could give. And with social media, he stopped posting for likes and started sharing only what was true to him, caring less about numbers and more about alignment. For the first time in decades, Robert felt free because he finally realized that approval from others is a moving target, but approval from yourself is a foundation. And here is the lesson. The prison of approval will never release you, because no matter how much you chase it, there will always be someone who disagrees, someone who criticizes, someone who refuses to see your worth. If you let your peace rise and fall with the applause of others, you will forever be enslaved to their opinions. True freedom begins the moment you stop asking, do they like me, and start asking, do I like who I am becoming? Because approval is an endless prison, but self-respect is liberation. The people who matter will respect you more when you are authentic, and the people who don't respect you are not worth shaping your life around. Remember this, you were not born to live as a shadow of someone else's expectations. You were born to shine in your own light. The key is already in your hand. Choose to unlock the prison, choose to live for yourself, and watch how your world transforms when you no longer need permission to be who you are. Number 5. Your time is your life. If there is one resource that is more valuable than money, more precious than opportunities, and more irreplaceable than anything else, it is time, because time is not just what ticks on a clock. Time is your life in motion, and every hour you give away is an hour of your existence you will never get back. Unlike money, which can be lost and regained, or possessions which can be broken and replaced, time is a one-way currency. You spend it once and it is gone forever, and yet so many of us treat it as if it were infinite, wasting it on things that don't matter, people who drain us, or distractions that rob us of our purpose. I once met a man named Michael at a retreat, and his story shook me to my core. For most of his adult life, Michael had been a workaholic, obsessed with climbing the corporate ladder, saying yes to every meeting, every business trip, every late-night project, because he believed that success meant sacrificing everything else. He told himself he was doing it for his family, but the irony was that his family barely saw him. He missed birthdays, school plays, anniversaries, and countless ordinary moments that would never come back. Then at just 52 years old, Michael was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. Suddenly his calendar full of meetings didn't matter, the emails piling in his inbox didn't matter, the promotions he had chased didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was time, and he realized he had given most of it away to things that could never love him back. With tears in his eyes he said, "I traded my life for deadlines, and now I don't have enough time left to live." That truth was devastating, but also awakening, because it forced him to see that the most important wealth we can ever protect is our time, and the greatest tragedy is to realize its value only when it's almost gone. After his diagnosis, Michael made radical changes. He quit the position that had consumed him, he spent his mornings walking with his wife, he traveled with his children, and he began writing letters to his future grandchildren, knowing he might never meet them. He said those final years, though fewer in number, were richer in quality than the decades before because he finally lived them fully. And here is the lesson: your time is your life, and how you spend it determines who you become. Every yes is a piece of your life you are giving away, so you must ask yourself, who or what is worthy of that exchange? When you spend hours scrolling aimlessly through distractions, when you tolerate toxic relationships that drain you, when you keep saying yes to things that bury your dreams, you are not just wasting time, you are wasting life. And the most sobering truth is that none of us know how much time we have left. Life does not come with a clock we can read. Our expiration date is hidden, which makes every day sacred. The question is, do you treat it that way? Do you wake up and see each morning as a slice of life you will never get back? Or do you allow it to slip through your fingers unnoticed? The people who truly understand the value of time are those who have faced loss, illness, or near death, because they see clearly what the rest of us ignore. Time is not guaranteed, it is borrowed, and one day the loan will be called back. That's why the greatest act of self-respect is to spend your time wisely, intentionally and meaningfully. Protect it like treasure, because it is invested in your growth, in the people you love, in the experiences that feed your soul, in the dreams that make your heart come alive. Say no to the things that steal life from you, because every no to what doesn't matter is a yes to what does. Remember this, your time is your life, and one day both will run out, so make sure when that moment comes, you can look back and say, I didn't just exist, I lived. Number 6. Putting yourself first elevates everyone. One of the greatest misconceptions we carry is that putting ourselves first means we are neglecting others, that by prioritizing our own needs we are somehow being selfish, arrogant, or uncaring. But the truth is the exact opposite. When you put yourself first, when you nurture your health, your mind, your spirit, and your dreams, you don't just rise alone, you elevate everyone connected to you. because you show up as the best, strongest, most authentic version of yourself. And that version has the power to inspire, uplift and transform the lives of others far more than the exhausted, depleted version ever could. I remember meeting a woman named Jessica during a leadership workshop. She was a mother of two, a dedicated wife and a committed employee. But for years she had